My name is Terry White. I broadcast on a regular basis about technology, gadgets, tips and tricks in live streaming, Adobe, and photography. And today we're talking about Periscope. We're talking about a specific feature in Periscope that allows you to share any broadcast to all of your followers. And I'm asking from here on out until, and I'll explain what I want from Periscope, until Periscope fixes this one thing. Really, I want two things, but until they fix one thing in particular, I don't want you sharing my broadcast anymore. All right, here's how this came to be. It's actually been a long time coming, but I never really realized the impact until I did some research over the last couple days. So a good close friend of mine, like somebody I would say in my top 5 favorite friends, I noticed one day, and this was a long time ago, I noticed that they weren't following me on Periscope. And the only way I knew that, because they were following me before, the only way I knew they weren't following me anymore is I went to go do a mutual kind of invite or share, and you can only invite people that are following you back. And I couldn't find his name in the list anymore. Sure enough, and I didn't think about it at the time, but sure enough, a little bit later, I went and looked at who he was following, and I wasn't there anymore. This person doesn't follow a bunch of people, so it was quick to scroll down the list and see that I wasn't there. So I thought, oh, I bet I know why he unfollowed me, because he got tired of the notifications. He got tired of me sharing. And I didn't do anything about it then. I didn't talk about it anymore. But at one point we saw each other and I said, hey, I know you probably unfollowed me on Periscope because of too many notifications and shares, but I wish you would at least follow me back and maybe even mute me if you want, but at least I want you to be one of my followers. And his response was, I don't remember unfollowing you, but if I did, I'll certainly follow you back. And he did. He followed me back. And by the way, he didn't know about the mute feature, so I'm sure at the time he unfollowed me. As a matter of fact, it might have been even before mute was a feature, because mute is not, it wasn't there on day one. So that problem resolved itself. We talked about it. He followed me back. Whether he muted me or not, don't know, but he followed me back. And then I didn't think anything else about it again. But I have since that conversation, lessened the amount of shares I was doing. Then I ran into one of the VPs in my company that I work for. And she's like 2 levels up from me. And we were talking in the hall at work one day, and she said, you're on Periscope a lot. My notifications are going off all night long. and I'm thinking, well, you're in a different time zone. That has something to do with it. And then I thought, oh God, I'm sharing too much. Even my boss's boss noticed it. And so again, I cut back a little bit more. I started being very selective about what I shared. And again, still had nothing to do with today's topic. It's leading up to it. Yesterday, I posted just a regular Instagram post, hey, follow me on Periscope. And I had one guy comment, I thought he was being a troll at first. And he said, well, I'll refollow you when you stop spamming with all those, all those share broadcasts or something. I knew what he was getting at. He didn't word it quite right, but that's what he was getting at. And this was like first thing in the morning. If you troll me first thing in the morning, my immediate response is delete. I didn't block him, but it was like delete. I don't even care about your comment. Delete. Out of here. And I thought about it a little bit later, and I said, is this guy talking about sharing? Because he wasn't really clear. He said spamming. And I thought, okay, maybe he's talking about sharing. And later on, he was in my Facebook messages, and he said, and I quote, you may never read this, but I just wanted you to know, I'm a big fan of yours, and I unfollowed you on Periscope because of all the notifications and whatever. And so I said, this is a guy I got to talk to. So I messaged him back, and I said, so tell me, what do you mean? What's going on? And he said, I love your broadcast. I love what you do, but I don't want to. I don't want all the notifications for the shares. I told him you can. You don't have to unfollow me. You can mute me. That way you won't get the notifications. Which that's another discussion for a little bit later today. And he said, no, I know. I don't want to mute you. I just don't want all the share notifications. So that was yesterday. And that got me thinking about it again. Now, this is 3 incidents in the past 6 months where it's come up about sharing and notifications. So here's what I went out to do. I went to do some research all day today and all night while I was thinking about it. To think about what's too much. Because I asked this guy, I said, well, I've limited, and this is, by the way, I set a rule to myself. I said I limited myself. First of all, I don't share things unless I think it's worthy of sharing. But even then, I limit myself to no more than 3 shares a day. And you know what his response was? That's still too many. And then I really started thinking, well, if 3 shares a day is too many, what's not too many? And so that's where we are today. And let me get into the presentation. Let me present the evidence to you, present my case. And this is why I don't want you sharing my broadcast anymore. And I'm not going to share anymore either unless it's something out of this world. But otherwise, I won't share it. So let me give you the context for it. I'm going to show you all the evidence, show you all the stuff that I came up with, and we'll talk about it. We'll go through it point by point. So for those who just got here, my name is Terry White. I broadcast on a regular basis about technology, gadgets, tips and tricks on live streaming, Adobe, and photography. Today we're talking about one feature of Periscope in particular, and that is a feature that allows you to share someone's broadcast to all of your followers. So let's get into it. All right. So my request is for you to stop sharing with all of your followers on Periscope, but with a caveat. Let's keep going. This is the feature in particular we're talking about. That one right there. Now, the share on Twitter, I don't have a problem with. The share with specific followers, I don't have a problem with it as a concept, but the feature is not great. And the share on Facebook is even less great because Facebook is more of a living, breathing timeline, and after 24 hours, that link you shared yesterday is now dead. So Facebook is kind of like, I've never really been hot on sharing on Facebook, but definitely share on Twitter and share with specific followers. All right, so let's get to it. Let me ask you a question. You guys can chime in right now, and I'm going to show you my research in just a minute. But just a quick poll here. How many followers do you have? Chime in. Put a number in the chat. 5 followers, 1,000, 254, 6,400, almost 300, 234, 130, 340 or so, 420, 200, 500, 2,900, 116, 1,503, 3,600, around 300. Sorry if I missed you. Was that Kim Coles? Kim, if that was you, welcome. Awesome you're here. 380, 225, 3,000, 30, 380, 150. Okay. All over the map. Negative 47. All over the map, and that's what I expected. Because depending on what you broadcast about, how long you've been on Periscope, how big your audience is, you're going to have numbers all over the map. And I expected that. Now let me ask you a question. Why do we share broadcast? Let's let that question soak in for a second. And I'm going to give you my answers. My answers are, we like what we see. It's good. It's good stuff. We like it. It's exciting. It's some place we've never seen before, and we're excited about it. Number 2, we like the broadcaster and want to support them. They're a good broadcaster. They're always showing good stuff. They're a friendly, fun person, and we want to be helpful. We want to share because we like that person. Number 3, this is the one that happens way too often. We feel an obligation because we know they want us to share, and maybe they even asked us to. Because, we always taught you early on, it doesn't hurt to ask someone to share your broadcast. So you kind of feel obligated to do it. Every time you pop into a broadcast of that person, you kind of do it all the time. You don't even know what they're going to talk about yet, but you've already hit share. And then, last but not least, and this is the one that we do a lot, it's just because it's a nice thing to do. We want the broadcaster to notice that we shared so they can give us a shout out saying, thanks for sharing. It's a nice thing to do. It's cool. Hey, I'm exposing you to my followers. Hey, let's high five about that. Hey, Lane. So those are kind of some of the reasons why we share. And you might have more, but that's pretty much it. All right. Now, let me ask you another question. I asked you how many followers do you have. Here's a better question. How many people do you follow? Chime in on the chat, and we'll go through the research in just a minute. 250, 37, 10, 300, 300, 150, 300-ish, 35, 150, 150, 670, 30, 120, 30. George, you're good. 577, 288, or 280, 2,000, 50, 400 or so, 2,000, 100 plus, 320. On a regular, 10. Well, what do you mean on a regular? You either follow them or you don't. 40. Now about 8. Wow, it was 40. You cut it down to 8. That's impressive, Ruben. 400, 250, but only really 5. And that we're getting to that point. 300-ish, 140, 400, but in reality, 10. See what some people are even saying? They're giving you the actual number, but then they're really telling you what it really means. Like, well, yeah, I follow 400 people, but 10 only count, or only 10 count. And that's the point. All right, so keep those numbers in mind, and everyone's now had a chance to see everyone else's numbers. You now know how many people, average here, that have followers, and how many people they follow. All right. Now let me ask you a question. I came up with a number that I thought was reasonable. I'm only going to share no more than 3 broadcasts per day. Not that I'm going to try to share 3, but I'm going to limit myself to 3. If I've shared 3 times, no matter what I see after that, I'm not sharing it. So what's a good number? How many shares are too many? Let's hear your opinion on that. I've almost left Periscope because of all the notifications. More than 1. 2, too many. 3 seems reasonable. I thought 3 was reasonable too until I take you through what else I'm going to show you. Subjective, but 2. Yeah, definitely things that are relative and things that are good. More than 3 is too many. You like my 3. Okay. 5. Share only the ones you truly like. I know, but let's say you really like 10. Are you going to share all 10? So from one broadcaster or multiple, no, it doesn't matter. How many shares per day is too many? Now, it doesn't matter, same broadcaster, multiple broadcasters, you really like the content's on point, it's what your followers would really like to see. How many is too many? 2 to 5, I think about 30 is too many. 3 is too many. Oh, 5. 5 per day max. 1 to 3, well, pick something in between there. 1 to 3 is too broad of a range. 4, more than 1 is too many. All right, so Kimberly, I like your answer. More than 1 is too many. Like 1 share a day is probably not too many. I like that number, and we're going to talk about that number in just a minute. 1 per day. Okay, good. Those are all good numbers. I know, we're not even talking about whether it's relevant or they're good. We're just talking about, we're taking for granted that the content's great and you like the broadcaster and it's relative to your audience. We're taking all that into account. How many's too many? So we're not saying you're just sharing crap. We're saying you really like it, it's really good, and it's even relative to your audience. Okay. Nope, quality's good. Lane, all great quality. So how many's too many? We're not putting any other limits on it. We're just saying it's all good. You're looking at 10 great scopes that are mind-blowing. How many is too many to share? Yikes, what have I walked in on? Mr. Creativity, it gets good. 4, 1 every day, 1 every second day. Okay, Victoria, that's a good answer. 24, there's no limit. Share all of them. All right, now we're going to the other end of the spectrum. Usually only share replays. 3. Okay, so we got a lot of good answers all over the map. Now let's take a look at some research based on some of the things I've already asked you. All right, so here's what I did. I went through my last 100 followers. So these are the last 100 people that followed me. And of course, taken into account sex bots, like taking the sex bots out of the equation. All right, let's look at that research for a second. So I went through everyone's profile of the last 100 people that followed me, and I looked at 4 things. I looked to see, had they done a recent broadcast? So it would either be 0 or a number, meaning recent within the last 24 hours. How many people are following them? How many people they follow? And if they've done a broadcast or not. Now, of course, Periscope doesn't tell you whether or not someone's ever done a broadcast, but one way to kind of figure it out is everyone starts with 1 heart, and if they've done 1 broadcast, chances are they have more than 1 heart. So and of course that can have a flaw. Maybe they did a broadcast and no one gave them a heart. But for the most part, I just said, okay, if they have more than 1 heart, they did a broadcast. If they don't have more than 1 heart, they didn't. All right, and out of that 100 followers, most recent followers, they averaged 680 followers. So out of that 100, some only had 2. Some had none. Some had thousands. Some had a few hundred. So the average was 680. And they were following an average of 357. Some were following 10. Some were following 200. Some were following 10,000. Some were following 5,000. So again, it was all over the map, but that's the average. 357 they were following. 680 were following them on average. Now, the interesting stat that was way high for me that I thought would be much lower is 56% of them have done at least 1 broadcast. I thought that number would be a lot lower. And I have some thoughts on why these numbers are what they are. Now, and by the way, last stat, there were 31 broadcasts in the last 24 hours out of those 100 people. Now, some people obviously didn't broadcast. And some people broadcasted once, some people broadcasted twice, some people broadcasted 3 times in the last 24 hours. So that was it. All right, so let's think about that for a second. Why would these numbers be what they are? Well, I'm a broadcaster. I'm often doing tips and tricks on live streaming. So I would say my last 100 broadcasts or my last 100 followers are a lot of broadcasters. There are people that are looking for tips because they broadcast. So my numbers might be a little higher than most people's numbers. That's why 56% of those last 100 people have done a broadcast. That's why. Okay, so I'm going to take the number down a little bit. Let's say it's 100 instead of 357. Let's say you follow 100 people. I'm taking the number way down. I'm saying I know it's 357, but let's just say for the sake of argument, we'll drop it down to 100. And let's say, and only 10 of them invited you to a broadcast a day. It wouldn't be unreasonable for 10 out of 100 to share 1 broadcast in a day if you had 100 followers. Right? Agreed? 10, not that many, out of 100 that shared 1 broadcast a day. Then what that would mean is that your phone would alert you 10 times a day for a share. Not their broadcasting, not the person you followed. It would be, so-and-so wants you to watch such and such. That's what your phone would look like, and that's what my phone looked like today. That's a screenshot of my notification center from today. Because this one person, who is now muted, wanted me to watch 3 different broadcasts today alone. And that's just one person. I didn't tell you all the rest. That's just from one. Okay. Now, let's remember that the real number is 35. So that would be 35 notifications out of 350 followers on average per day if they only shared one broadcast. And that's only 10% of the average number of followers. So do you really want your phone going off 10 to 35 times a day because someone thought this is really cool and you should watch it? Because that's what they're saying. This is really cool, you should watch it. Terry's a really nice guy, great content, thank you. You should watch it. And again, I know I'm asking you not to do this anymore, even for my content. All right, that's what you're enduring. Okay, so let's talk about the end result of what happens when you do this. You're likely to be unfollowed or muted. Now, in the early days when Periscope started in March 2015, there was no mute feature. And back then, it wasn't so much about sharing. It was about people just being new to Periscope, broadcasting literally every 15 minutes. Hey, I'm broadcasting. Hey, this is Periscope. Hey, check me out. I unfollowed so many people in that first 30 days simply because they were broadcasting nonstop. Yes, mute is on iOS. What mute feature? It's coming. Calm down. Slow the horses down. I'm going to show you the mute feature. Calm down. All right, so I unfollowed lots of people in the early days because they were just simply broadcasting way too often. And it wasn't that they weren't showing good stuff. It's just that my phone was blowing up every 15 minutes because so-and-so thought I should be looking out the view of their window. And nothing was going on out of the view of their windows, by the way. Okay, so next. Then people started inviting me to every broadcast they watched. That led to unfollows. Because they didn't just share selectively, they didn't just share what they thought I might want to watch, they shared everything. Every single thing that came across their stream. If they follow 35 people and 35 people broadcasted that day, you got 35 shares just from that one person alone. So that person got unfollowed. All right. Then Periscope finally did implement a mute feature, and yes, it is on iOS and Android. So now, thank God, I don't have to go through that, you're unfollowed, buddy, I like you, but I'm unfollowing you because you either share too much or broadcast too much. I can at least mute them. And that way, I'm still following them. That way, they'll still show up in my feed when they do a broadcast. But here's the problem. I won't be notified when they broadcast. And is that what we really want? Is that what you want? Is you want to be sharing so much that someone has to mute you, and then when you do decide to broadcast, now they don't see you anymore. So here's some things for you to think about that might drive this home even further. I'm going to give you my numbers now. I gave you an average of people that follow me. Let me give you my numbers. I have 7,500 followers. Thank you very much. I'm so appreciative of all of your follows. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for being part of my audience. I follow 444 people, something like that. Over 400 people, whatever it is, four something. Now, with 7,500 people following me, why are there only 75 in this broadcast right now? Why is there only 75 people here and 7,500 people said they want to follow me? Time? Well, it could be the time. Could be Sunday. Could be this particular time of day. All right, Levon, let's say we take off 1,000 bots, even though I know there aren't that many. Okay, so why aren't there more people if 6,500 people follow me? It's Sunday evening. Okay, I don't broadcast just on Sunday evening, by the way. It's Sunday evening, time of day, people work, people sleep, people different time zones, whatever. But out of 6,500 people, if we just said 1,000 are bots, wouldn't there be more than 71? TV's good right now, maybe. You know why there aren't more people? Because they've either muted me by now or turned off their Periscope notifications in general, or all the other reasons you're talking about. But for the most part, I would dare say it's because they're not getting the notification anymore. I'm going to guess that that's a large part of the reason. Okay. Here's the best part. You have options. We love options. So let's go through the options we have. If you're annoyed by too many notifications, you have options. And if you're just joining my broadcast, thanks for being one of the 75, 74 people. My name is Terry White. I broadcast on a regular basis about technology, gadgets, tips and tricks on live streaming, Adobe, and photography. Let's talk about your options. Option number one, and sadly, it's the nuclear option. You have the option to unfollow people. It's okay. You can unfollow people. It's the nuclear option. It's sad. It means I'm going to lose a follower, but people do it all the time. People unfollow me on platforms every day. People follow me on platforms every day. It happens. All right. That's the worst one. That's the nuclear option. That's the one I really, really don't like to use and don't use very often. But here's the better option, at least for now. Mute. So one of the things I love that they did integrate into iOS is that when you get a notification in your notification center, swipe left and you get more options. You can not only mute that user, but you can even mute the app for 3 hours. In other words, you'll just turn off Periscope notifications for 3 hours so you can get some work done. And then 3 hours later, the notifications are back on. But mute is a beautiful thing. But there's a problem with the mute here on iOS. Android users have got it a little bit better. So, third option, and this is the one I want across the board. In Periscope on Android, they've got another way to do this. They can mute share notifications. What I wouldn't pay for that feature right now. If I could tap a button and turn off share notifications, that would be the fastest button I would turn off. Yes, we need that. We need that on iOS. Absolutely. And I didn't even know Android users had it until a couple days ago. So some things are on iOS that aren't on Android. Some things are on Android that aren't on iOS. So Team Android, you win this one. I wish I had this feature. Not enough to buy an Android phone, but I do wish I had this feature. All right. Here we go. There are other share options too. This is what it looks like when you share. You can share on Twitter. You can share to all followers, which I don't want you doing anymore. You can share with specific followers or share on Facebook. So sharing on Twitter. I remember hearing a broadcaster say this months ago. He said, I actually prefer it when you share it on Twitter instead of inviting your followers because most of you have a bigger Twitter following than you have a Periscope following. Now, of course, that's not going to be true for everybody. Some people don't really use Twitter and they have a bigger Periscope following. But for the most part, more of you probably have a bigger Twitter following than you have a Periscope following. I know that's the case for me. I've got 46,000 followers on Twitter and only 7,500 here on Periscope. So if I share you on Twitter, you got a bigger chance of people seeing you than if I share you or if I invite all my followers here on Periscope. Okay, so Twitter is now my new go-to. And there's another reason why Twitter is a better option. Because when I share on Twitter, a little page comes up that I can type in, I can just share it, or I can type in whatever I want. So I can explain why I'm sharing it. I can put in hashtags that aren't in the original title. I can share specific reasons about this on Twitter. And then my Twitter audience will get a better share than just me inviting all my followers. Next, you can share it on Facebook. I don't know how much value there is in sharing it on Facebook because Facebook already has a limitation on that they don't show everything to everyone that wasn't created on Facebook. So a link back to Periscope is not going to go out to everyone you share it to. They're not going to see it in their timeline. But why not? Now, there's only one other option or one other reason why I don't like sharing on Facebook. And it's because it puts a link on Facebook to the broadcast and 24 hours later that link doesn't work anymore. So you're just going to frustrate people that didn't see it live, that go to look at it 25 hours from now and the link doesn't work. So that's why I've never been a fan, really, of sharing on Facebook. Individual users. This is a good option, but it needs some work. Individual users means I can pick and choose on Periscope who gets the notification. But the problem is I have to do it every single time. I have to tap. Okay, yeah, this person get it. I have to think about who should get it. So whenever you see someone in your scope that says shared with one person and you laugh, they knew one person on their list would really benefit from this and they shared it to that one person. So don't laugh next time. That was actually them thinking about it. Like, you got to manually sift through it. I know. So Renee, you're right on point. All right. Here's what I want Periscope to fix. And they can. This is not rocket science. This is easy for Periscope to fix. Number one, bring the additional notification options to iOS that are already on Android. They've already written it. It's already there. Just make it possible to do the same thing on iOS. That's an easy one. That's low-hanging fruit. But in the bigger picture, I want for them to make groups, lists, whatever you want to call them, of common interest that a user, not that I share to, but the user can subscribe to. So imagine if you tapped on someone's profile and you tapped another button that showed lists, hashtags, or whatever, and it said tech, cameras, photography, makeup, set design, so forth and so on. And you tapped on the ones you're interested in. Now, when I share and I use any of those hashtags, only those people that subscribe to those hashtags would get the notifications. Sports, music, exactly. Whatever it is. So that's the bigger picture stuff that Periscope needs to address sooner than later. But in the meantime, until Periscope fixes this, I'm not using the share with all followers option unless I'm witnessing the second coming. Unless I'm witnessing something that is so amazing, I cannot not share it. And I don't want you to share my broadcast with all of your followers anymore until we have better options. So I'm not just saying I'm going to do it to you. I want you to do it to me. I want you to not share my broadcast to all of your followers anymore. Because at the end of the day, I think it does more harm for you than it helps you. Because if you're sharing everyone's broadcast all the time, your followers are becoming annoyed. And they're either muting you or unfollowing you. And how's that helping you? Got it? Don't share my broadcast anymore to all of your followers on Periscope. Share it on Twitter all you want. Share it on Facebook all you want. Invite specific people all you want. But don't share them anymore. It's not worth the risk to you. Yes, and don't mute me. Unless you have a good reason. All right. Was that helpful to anybody? Make sense? Stop sharing. All right. Too much today. I will say this. One of the reasons we like it as broadcasters when people share us is because we think, okay, if I have 100 followers and someone with 1,000 followers shares my broadcast to their base, that's 1,000 new potential people that'll follow me. And that might be true. You might pick up some new followers simply because a big-time scoper shared your broadcast. But I've certainly, at least from what I can witness, gotten way more followers from being in other people's broadcasts and the broadcaster giving me a shout out, saying, hey, Terry White's in here, follow Terry White. I get more followers that way, I think, than people following or people sharing my broadcast. So I don't need the other followers for that headache. It's not worth it. That's how you found me. Great. Thank you. Cool. Yep. People do promote your scopes every day, and people do all these things every day to get you more followers. Kim Cole singing my name doesn't hurt, but those are the things I think that will help you in the long run versus sharing every broadcast you come across. Because I swipe so fast to the left, it's not even funny now. Swipe left, mute. Swipe left, mute. Oh, 3 in a row, swipe left, mute. So now I don't see your shares anymore, but I don't see you anymore either. So with that said, don't share my broadcast anymore to all of your followers. I won't ask you to. And I'll remind you not to from here on out. Swipe the TV. Make it count is the bottom line. That's the takeaway from today. Whatever you do, whether it's a broadcast, a share of any kind, make it count. Is it worth it? Is it worth disrupting the 100, 200, 2,000, 20,000 people that follow you? Is it worth it? If it is, do it. If not, it's okay that you don't share it. All right. Thanks, Jamelia. All right, guys. With that, I'm also not going to keep you on scopes any longer than necessary. So we got the content out of the way. If you missed it, it's too much to recap. You just need to go watch the replay and make it count. And with that said, thanks for watching. Thanks for the follows. Thanks for the hearts. Thanks for the very selective shares everywhere except for all your followers. And we'll catch you on the next one. Down Periscope.